Hello, everyone. I'm going to make a very short video, and it's just going to basically cover a review for this module's portion of the lab, which is over the lymphatic system. Honestly, of all the lab organ systems that are covered, this one happens to be one of the smaller ones. It's not cardiovascular is big, digestion's big, respiratory can be big, urinary is big. This one's not so much. So what we have here, and it's kind of it's a take on, there's part of the outline for the lecture for this, but we have an introduction here for the lymphatic system, a vital part of the human body's immune system. And you know what, while I'm thinking of it, I'm just going to do this. Anyway, the lymphatic system really does three things. It's supposed to help, it absorbs the excess fluid that's produced by the cardiovascular system and returns it back to the venous system prior to going into the heart. The other part, a smaller part, is it does help absorb what are called emulsified fat, and these things called lacteals, which we're not going to be talking about here. And it's the immune system, basically, which the lab part is not going to touch on that. The lecture does. So I'm going to go through, now this is written verbatim, and a lot of this came from the outline for the lecture, but starting here first. So lymph and lymphatic capillaries. So lymph originates as interstitial fluid surrounding tissue cells. In here, this is a vein, this is an artery. Blood flowing through a tissue bed is under extremely high pressure on the arterial end, and capillaries are very thin. So when blood is going through this capillary bed, water and small proteins get pushed into what's called the interstitial space between the cells. Most of that fluid moves back into the capillary end of a vein by osmosis. It's pulled back in because blood has a very high osmotic pressure, the pulling force. Whatever is left is collected. If I can get this a little bigger without messing everything up. Anyway, whatever is left is collected here, and you can see the green arrow, well, the arrows, as what is called lymph. And then it circulates just like blood through veins does. And what I mean by that is, coffee's just, it's hard to do coffee in these things. It circulates like venous blood. There's not any pressure, there's no pumping force. Lymph moves through your body by your breathing motions, muscle contractions, and constriction of large trunks and venous vessels. So that's a nice little here's an overview. It says here's the vessels, the capillaries. Yes, lymphatic vessels have valves. Lymph node, trunk, duct, all the way back up again. So real quick overview. Once again, this is covered in the lecture part. There's lessons that do this. There's also part of the outline for this section. But you can see here's a vein, here's an artery. And you have no idea the adversity I'm facing right now. My daughter's cat is trying to take over my computer as I'm going through this. So I'm seeing half cat butt, tail, and then a green vessel. All right. Okay, she moved. So here are these arrows, and that's supposed to represent lymph flowing through these vessels have been collected from the interstitial space. This is actually a good picture over here. There's an artery, a vein, and a lymphatic vessel. You can see how thin they are. This down here is showing a vein representative. That's what these are. These little almost look like they're coming this way. Those are valves. The term is it's unidirectional flow. Lymph cannot flow backwards. It can only go forwards. So those are vessels, and basically vessels go through lymph node. Well, they empty into a lymph node. The lymph goes through the lymph node, and then it exits through another vessel, which is going to be the next thing we cover. We're just doing the whole system at the moment. There we go. Much better. So trunks are just bigger vessels, and they're located in here. Kind of left that part off. They have names. The lecture does cover that, but they're basically bigger. They're the next part up, they're larger than vessels. And then there's two lymphatic ducts. There's one on this side that's called the right lymphatic duct, and it's connected to the subclavian veins. It's receiving blood from this part of the body in the right arm. That's why it's kind of green over here. The one on this side is called the thoracic duct. It's receiving lymph from everywhere else. So the legs, arms, this side of the body, it's all dumping in right here. And then blood goes into the vena cava, superior, inferior, well, in this case, the superior, and then goes to the heart, gets pumped through the body, and the whole thing starts over again. So there's a little bit about the right lymphatic duct and the thoracic duct. So this would be the bigger one. It collects the most lymph, basically. And it's giving you an idea there. The right is only the right side of the head and neck. So, okay, now an overview, you'll need to be able to identify these are different lymphatic organs. And I didn't bother really covering what are called primary and secondary. Once again, the lecture does that. So here are tonsils, the thymus, which is located right above the heart. It actually is large as an infant, gets smaller as a person gets older. It's where you get what are called T-cell lymphocytes from. There's the spleen, which is it's a lymphed organ that filters blood, does not filter lymph. Peyer's patches and tonsils are what are called unencapsulated lymph tissue. They're nodules that do not have a capsule, whereas lymph nodes do. So they're kind of scattered throughout here, and then here's the appendix. You'll have to be able to identify these. Look at which of these is indicated by the black arrow kind of thing. So here's a thymus. Here you see it's large, here it's smaller. That's what it looks like. Here's a nice little cross section. But the one thing about the thymus gland is it produces something called a T cell. They're T cell lymphocytes. It's the ones that they're lymphocytes produced in red bone marrow. They circulate to the thymus, and a hormone called thymosin then converts them to what are called T cell lymphocytes. Something happens to the thymus gland, person's not going to have any T cells. Here's a lymph node. There's a diagram here. There was a diagram up here that you'll want to look at as well. Go all the way back up again. It's got also the locations where they're located. But all the little bumps you see, little bean structures. Once again, you have no idea what I'm balancing here. I'm petting a spoiled cat and doing this whole thing with my other hand on a mouse, trying to see over the spoiled cat to my computer screen. All right, so yeah, lymph nodes are small, round, oval, encapsulated means they have a capsule. Unencapsulated means they're lacking a capsule. That green layer on the outside, that's a capsule. By definition, that's what makes something an organ. Anything that's encapsulated is considered to be an organ. So these are organs. This is a good lymph node. So this represents, these are called afferent vessels. They're carrying lymph into the lymph node. And this one leaving is called an efferent vessel. Now, most cases you read, there's only one efferent, whereas there's multiple afferent vessels. But they're along the pathway of lymph vessels all the way back up to the big ducts. And what they do is they filter lymph. This area here is called a nodule. Well, okay, the whole thing is called a nodule. Where, let's see. Well, anyway, okay. But the middle part is called the germinal center. It looks like in this particular diagram, they're called lymphoid follicles. Nodules, the same thing. But yeah, you see there's a blood flow to them. If you see trabeculae, little extensions here of connective tissue that separate a lymph node and compartment, same thing happens with a, and my cat just turned on my Star Trek movie. They separate a lymph node into categories or compartments. I'm sorry. Spleen does the same thing. So real quick, there are regions to this. There's regions to the spleen as well. This is the capsule, which is the outside layer. This area around here would be what's called the cortex. And the middle section is called the medulla. So in fact, here's cortex, medulla, you can see it's pointing right there. A hilum is an area in an organ where blood vessels enter or exit, but there's the efferent vessel. So lymph goes through here. What you have are collections of white blood cells that are stored in these B cell, T cell, macrophages. And if there's any bacteria in a person's system, that's the lymph nodes will become active and those cells will start eliminating that. That's why they swell up when a person gets sick. Which is kind of what I just mentioned here, lymph nodules, but this is just another picture. See, it says afferent vessels. Now this one's got a couple leaving. These are efferent. All right, well, lymphoid follicle, it's fine. Germinal center, this is the cortex area. This in the middle would be the medulla. Didn't mean to click on that. And the capsule's the outside part. Okay. Other thing that you have to know is what areas are lymph nodes found. This is a great diagram. Cervicals in the neck, axillaries here, sides of the abdomen, sort of the lower abdomen. Think about, if you're a guy, you know this, you get checked for a hernia in high school if you're going to play sports. Anybody's probably heard of being checked for a hernia. That lower part of the abdomen, those are the inguinal nodes. Here would be the abdominal area. Here is the thoracic, and this is the duct, but your chest would be the thoracic area. Do want to point out one thing, this large vessel here called the cisterna chyli, and it's receiving lymph from the digestive system, which has got a lot of bacteria, but that's a landmark kind of thing. All right, the spleen, now it's right here on this diagram. See it and I showed you on the other one, it's on the left side. So this is what it looks like. You can see where it's located there. And anyway, it's in red because the spleen filters blood. So if you cross-section the spleen, here's the splenic artery and the splenic vein. So here is a illustration and then a real actual histology section. Here's red pulp, white pulp, sinusoids, or little channels that go through here, a central artery, which blood is flowing through. And the spleen does a few things. It can store blood, act as a reservoir, so to speak. But the main thing it does is it filters blood. So any damaged cells or foreign antigen type things are in the blood, they're going to get filtered. It also takes out damaged platelets and red cells and that kind of thing. So a sinusoid is like a little channel right here, and they flow through here. And because it's red, because it's got blood in it, the areas that are kind of red colored here between these little white lighter color areas, that's called red pulp. The spleen has different terminology. The ones here that are lighter colored are called white pulp. And you have white blood cells here, of course. The red pulp as well has some what are called wandering and fixed macrophages, these big Pac-Man cells. So the spleen filters blood. So it's this white pulp of a nodule. Here's red pulp here, but the lighter area is called white pulp. All right, we're getting to the end now. Tonsils, which most people have heard of those, they're located in your, they're dispersed everywhere. Most people have heard of them in the pharynx area, upper throat. We kind of cover three of these. This is a good diagram. You can see them here, but here are the pharyngeal tonsils, which sometimes are called the adenoids. Here are the palatine tonsils toward the back, and then lingual are associated or behind the tongue. So here, but those are really good. That's a good diagram. And any diagram you see, we're going to cover respiratory. You'll see a cross section, and you'll probably see these located there as well. But what they are is they're basically lymph tissue, and they do not have a capsule. This is here, not surrounded by a connective tissue capsule. They're found in the pharynx and the oral cavity, but they're part of the lymphatic system. They're there to help filter and take out microbes that are being inhaled from the nose and the mouth area. Lymphatic nodules. Now, I don't know if I might move this down here, this part when you see this. But these are this type of thing. So MALT, great name, mucus associated lymphatic tissue. It's areas like these lymph nodule type tissue found in all of the major organ areas. And it's an area called the lamina propria, a layer of the mucosa layer. There's 4 layers: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis, and serosa. And so these are located there. Pars patches are the ones that are most famous, which are here. And that's kind of what these are referring to as far as lymphatic nodules. They're talking about this sort of thing. But the yellow areas, and there's the appendix, MALT in the appendix, MALT here, large intestine, they're just areas of lymph tissue. Same thing. They're there to filter microbes. It's part of the immune response, part of the immune system. And we've reached the end. And my daughter's cat has decided to leave because she knew I was handling things the way I should be. So, all right, that is it. I know this is verbatim. I just wanted to give you a little highlight reel. What you're going to have to do is this particular lab exam is multiple choice. It's 20 questions. You'll have 60 minutes. Probably covered this in the whole module video, but you will not be writing in any names for this. So, all right, that is it. Anyway, thank you for watching this video, and email me if you have any questions.